My name is Liesel, and I'm going on the medical team.
Yay.
And my favorite, or one of my favorite childhood memories, I grew up in Albania, and every night of the summer they close the main street, and you just can walk the main street. So my favorite memory was walking that street with my family and getting ice cream in the summer.
And I'm Brett, and my favorite childhood memory was we had a big mountain in front of my house growing up, and so I just loved playing in the woods with my friends up on the mountain. And I'm going to medical team also.
My name is Josie, and I'm going on the Education 2 team. I am one of 10. I have 3 sisters and 6 brothers. So all of my childhood memories are really spent babysitting since I was one of the oldest. But we had lots of family time and lots of outdoor
time. How do I go?
You're just going to say your name and what team you're on and then favorite childhood memory.
Well, I am Jim or James Edick, and I am a friend of Tom Glibber, which then connects me to the great Glibber Ritter family. So childhood memories would be youngest of 6, a very, I think, wonderful family. So my memory is growing up in a community with friends like Tom and family members, and so I'm blessed, and I'm going to go find out what all you other folks have done to share your talents and gifts to the rest of the world.
We are so excited to have you on the medical team. It'll be really fun. Who else thinks there's a few more of you guys?
I can go. I'm Hannah, and I'm going on the medical trip. And I would say that some of my favorite memories have been going on trips with my family. We've always loved to travel. And so growing up, we did a lot of traveling, and we've made some of our most fun memories doing all of that.
Hi, I'm Raven. I am going on Education 1 and 2. My favorite, growing up, we were always that family who rode the dirt bikes in the subdivision. So I have like a whole bunch of stories about how all of that fun stuff. So those are probably some of my favorite childhood memories.
Hi, I'm Kinsey. Sorry, Rob.
Go ahead.
I am going to be helping lead both of the education teams. And I think some of my favorite childhood memories come from when my family would go camping. I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger brothers. So our favorite thing to do was always go on our bike rides, and I like to play the mother to them. So those were my memories.
I'm Rob Burton with Education 2, and I came from a family of 6 kids, 5 boys, and every year for Christmas we all would get dart guns. This is when it was politically correct to have dart guns, and we would end up shooting the ornaments off the tree, and which would probably be antiques now, but we 5 boys fired at all of the Christmas ornaments, and we did that every Christmas. So that was pretty cool.
Who's left?
I haven't gone yet. I'm Isaac. I'm going on Education 1. Some of my favorite childhood memories are growing up. I was pretty involved in sports, mainly basketball, and I have a lot of good memories of playing on summer travel teams and just going to different tournaments and hanging out with friends.
Hi, I'm Brian. I am going on Education 2, and my favorite childhood memory is probably just summers growing up. There's a pool in our neighborhood, and we just go and hang out at the pool all day.
Hi, I'm Amy Punchard. Can y'all hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm Amy. I'm Amy Punchard, and I'm going with Education Team 2. And I think that probably my favorite childhood memory is when I have 4 cousins. There are 6 of us total, and we're all girls. And so I think some of my childhood memories are when all of us were together playing and fighting. That's probably my favorite memories.
I'm Kerrigan, and I'm also going on Education 2. And can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. And I think my favorite childhood memories would be like taking family vacations every summer and going to like national parks and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Anyone else left? Melissa Ingram?
I'm Shelby. I'm going on Education 1. And growing up, I used to live like 20 minutes outside of Amarillo. And during the summer, we would just spend the night out on the trampoline under the stars. That's probably my favorite, was sleeping under the stars every night in the summer.
Hey, I'm Melissa Ingram, and one of my, Education 2. One of my favorite childhood memories is working in the garden with my grandmother and asking her to tell me stories about her growing up. So we'd be, pulling weeds or thinning the hair or whatever, and she would tell me stories. And this, at one point she said, I asked her to tell me a story, and she said, well, honey, I've told you all my stories. And I said, well, tell me a rerun. So I always enjoyed that.
Hi, I'm Frida Lear, Melissa's mom, and I'm going on Education 2. And I couldn't narrow it down to a favorite memory, but I grew up on a farm, and I remember loving to just go out and walk and meander and just be outside. Didn't have any friends close by, so I was on my own, and I just entertained myself.
Cool. Is that everyone?
I still have to go. I don't know if
Go for it. You're good.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear or see me. I'm Sally. I'm on Education 2 team. I also went on a lot of trips growing up, and probably my favorite vacation was going to Disney World. So, yeah.
Is that everyone? I've lost track. I think it's everyone. There's someone on a phone call, but I don't know who it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Edic went to the phone.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pray for our time, and then we're going to dive into what I have for us today. Jesus, I thank you for all of these men and women that you've gathered to go to Malawi this summer, Father. I ask that you would just be with us in this time, Lord, as we just talk about what it means to what an orphan spirit is, God, as we dive into what you have for us going to Malawi this summer, God, as we dive into where you want us to grow, Lord, and how we want to experience more of who you are, Father. I just pray that you would just give us a little bit of undistracted time to be with you and to get to know each other. We love you in your son's name. Amen. Awesome. Well, I'm not sure who was able to go through the lessons this week, or if you haven't gotten the book, you guys can still get the book. But this week, there are 2 chapters. The second and third lesson was the remedy of being an orphan, and the third one was making me a living expression. If you have gone through the book, you've seen that oftentimes it'll kind of give you some time to like spend time with God and kind of just reflect and ask him to show you things or to put things on your heart, to reveal things to you about areas where you can change or areas that he wants you to pray about. And this is something that we're going to continue doing from now all the way until we're in Malawi. And we really want to invite you guys to join us in doing that as you're just spending time with God, not only preparing logistically, because there are so many logistical things of, okay, what do I need to pack? What do I need to apply for? What visa do I need to get? What medical supplies do we need? What things we need for the school? Like musically, what do I prep for evangelism? Like there's so many different things that we can prepare for. And it's really easy to get to Malawi and realize like, we haven't spent any energy on a heart level preparing our hearts for what God wants to do in our hearts. And so I just really want to remind you guys to consistently be spending time with God from now up to Malawi and just kind of asking him like how he wants you to prepare for this trip. And when we're in Malawi too, like we'll have debriefs at night and we'll often spend time in prayer. And just asking you guys as leaders to listen to the Lord and see, if he's saying anything to you or showing you anything throughout the day as you guys go throughout your days or as you spend time in the Word. So I just want to encourage you guys with that, because as you guys go through the lessons, you'll continually see that. But for chapter 2, it kind of starts talking about this idea of like an orphan spirit. And I think this concept of what an orphan spirit is really important for us to understand before we go and serve in Malawi. Can I just get a raise of hands? Who's been overseas in some capacity before? Okay, so most of you, but some of you not, which is so exciting. I think this concept of an orphan spirit is talked a lot about in scripture. And as time has gone on and I've kind of reflected upon what an orphan spirit is, I think it really is such a huge part of us understanding the Lord's heart for us and for his children. And so as you guys went through that, you could be at, like, there was scripture and just kind of words of like, what is an orphan spirit? An orphan, as we think of, we're going to serve these orphans in Malawi, or we think of an orphan, not someone who doesn't have a physical mom or a dad, but what we're talking about is so much deeper than just someone not having a physical mother or a father. Some of you might be able to identify with an orphan spirit, whether you were adopted or maybe you had a parent that wasn't very present in your life. Maybe you had really great parents. Some of you guys have are going to be able to identify with that word differently, but regardless of the physical presence or absence of a parent in our lives, there's this core orphan spirit of us needing Christ in our lives. And that's essentially like what the scripture that we had was kind of talking about on page 14. It gives in a verse, Ephesians 1:5-6. It says, "For it was always in his perfect plan to adopt us as his delightful children, so that his tremendous grace that cascades over us would bring him glory. For the same love that he has for his beloved one, Jesus, he has for us." And I think it's really important for us to be able to identify with that orphan spirit, because it lets us see our need for Christ. And as we're going to a place that we might see them as orphans in the physical sense, not necessarily seeing that they don't have parents, some of these children that we'll see, but it's interesting as I was preparing for this, like when I think about the kids that we serve in Malawi, especially the ones at the Grace Center, like I don't even ever call them orphans because of, I think, this concept of this orphan spirit. Because of Christ, when we have surrendered to Christ and we enter into a relationship with Jesus, he adopts us into his family, right? He gives us this grace and this free gift. And I think you'll see when you guys go to Malawi, these kids may not have parents, but for the children that have given their lives to Jesus and have surrendered to him, you'll see the remedy of an orphan spirit. So they feel loved and they know their value and they know their identity. And those are different things that we had talked about in this second lesson. It kind of had you go through of like asking God, like, where in my life have I been living as an orphan? Like an orphan spirit, the things that you're going to feel in an orphan spirit is you feel like you have to defend yourself, the feelings of having to make things right, feeling abandoned, feeling alone, feeling like that you don't have enough, feeling like you have to manage that situation. And it's like a weird question. You're like, how do I feel as an orphan? Like, I have no idea. But I think as I was reflecting, I know the Lord had revealed to me, oftentimes I act out of independence, which puts me in a place of not trusting God. It puts me in a place of not like relying on God, because I'm like, I can do this all by myself. Like, I don't need someone else to help me in this. So those are the kinds of things that I think we were just having you guys reflect on, and reflecting on like where your identity is. If our identity is not in Christ, if our identity isn't in this relationship with Jesus, we're gonna respond out of an orphan spirit and not respond as a child who trusts his father, his heavenly father, who's perfect, and when he knows he's faithful and he's trustworthy. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, or if you guys resonate with any of that. I was telling Karen right before this, something that I had remembered when I first came back from Malawi my second time. I went to Malawi when I was in college, but then the second time I went, I was a nurse. And I remember coming back and I was like driving to the hospital, and I was sitting at the red light. And I had essentially like 24 hours in between getting off the plane and going back to work. And I was sitting at the red light and I was staring at the hospital in front of me. And I was just kind of like, God, like, I don't want to take care of these people in this hospital. Like, they're rude. They smell. They aren't grateful. They like don't care like what I'm doing. Like, they don't really want to be here. Like, I want to just like go take care of these kids or these people that are grateful. And I just feel like the need's more there. And the Lord like very kindly reminded me that morning in the car. And I remember so vividly of just being like, Silvana, like, they might not be physical orphans, but like they have orphan spirits just like the kids do in Malawi. And I just remember that being like really powerful in my life, and just recognizing like the soul need of every human to need Jesus, and like the patients that I get to serve here in Kentucky have the same need as these kids and the people that we're going to encounter with in Malawi. Like, yes, we can maybe bring physical needs to them through medical care, through education, through things that we'll be doing on the evangelism team, but the core need of every human of like this need for Christ. So I know that's been something as I've come home and in the process of going and coming from Malawi, that's been something that I think God has continued to remind me of just like, even though I might have a greater desire to take care of these people, like the people I get to serve in my current position, he's placed me as a nurse in the hospital, like I am taking care of people with orphan spirits. So was there anything else like from those of you who got a chance to look at that second lesson of the remedy of being orphaned? Did anything like stick out to you, or did you feel like God kind of put anything on your guys' hearts?
I'll talk. This is Allison. And I just feel for me personally, some of the experiences that I've gone through, I went through a divorce, I don't even know how long ago, in like 2013. And I really did feel very orphaned at that time. And it was one of the scariest times of my life. And but through that experience, was drawn into my church family and the love and support of Christ. And in that experience, God actually spoke to me. And so it turned something very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and the feelings of alone into something where a lot of love and a lot of sense of community and Christ's family just, carried me through that time.
Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else, other thoughts? Or those of you who've traveled and have encountered maybe physical orphans like that versus an orphan spirit, or having any other thoughts about that?
I think a big thing for me sometimes is like self-dependence, and so not seeking others to refill me, but pouring out, not being poured into. And I think just like with traveling for mission trips, how open and you have to be to rely on others, and just orphans are so honest and loving, and they just desire that attention. And sometimes I'm too prideful for that, so that just kind of stuck with me. So
yeah.
I'm not used to having to unmute the button. Had to find it there. Well, I
I wanted to share just a little because I've been working with this thing of the orphan spirit in my life for a long time and have been aware of it. But this past weekend, I was at a worship night, and Jesus revealed to me some more about the orphan spirit and how it just kind of takes over in our lives and makes us feel lonely and like we have to do it on our own, like we're just abandoned or don't have enough. And it can come in a lot of different ways. And what he showed me that night was that he doesn't want me to be out there alone outside of his family. He wants me to be in his house. And like the worship team that night was singing a song about being in the Lord's house, and there's no place I would rather be but in his house. And I realized, wait a minute, how many times do I get myself out of that? So like, we get into okay, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to have this little worship time, but he really wants me in his house all the time, in his family, under his protection, just, like the little chickie under his wing and taken care of. That's where Jesus wants me to be. And this orphan spirit tells me, but you're alone, you're abandoned, and it's just not true. That's the lie, that I have to live with that orphan spirit.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that? I'd love to hear.
I'll go. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Seth has one too when you
That'll
get
be
done.
quick.
Go. No, I want to hear. You're good.
Remind me.
Oh, am I going?
Yes.
You
go
guys
ahead.
hear me?
Go ahead.
Am I audible? What happens?
Okay, go ahead, Seth.
Okay. I'm gonna go real quick. So a theme that a couple of us here in Lex have been working with, for like the past week, really has been gratitude. Just like in day-to-day life and in our walks with the Lord. So gratitude is the attitude, right? Like, that's kind of how we're supposed to be living as children of the light and everything. And like, with this thing of adoption, I think more than anything, it should create in us just like tons of gratitude, because especially when you consider that, yes, the Father brought us into his family, but it cost him a lot. Like, it cost him Jesus. It cost that. It cost the cross is what it cost him. So it wasn't cheap. Our adoption costs a lot on his behalf. And so we think like that's a privilege. Like, we are so valued. It's ridiculous how valuable we are to him. Like, he was willing to pay that price to get us adopted into his family. So for me and for some of us here, that's been like, we've just been walking in gratitude and trying to get to a place of gratitude in any situation in life really quickly. Like, we want to get there super fast. Like, if something bad comes up, like, we're trying to get to that spot of like gratitude as quickly as possible. So anyways, that's just kind of how I was relating to the whole adoption thing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think that's an awesome point. Shelby, did you have something you were going to share?
Yeah, so going through this one kind of hit home. I'm still working through my orphan spirit. When I was 13 or 14, my parents got divorced, and that was really hard, mainly because of social reasons. Like, my sister and I, we told our mom for years to leave our father because he was abusive and he wasn't a good man. But after that happened, there was that feeling of like loneliness and not being worth anything. And then I lost a lot of my friend group. Their family was, no, they were a whole family. We were considered broken and not good enough. So I didn't really have any friends for a while. And it took junior year of college, so 14 to junior year of college, before I actually like made friends and trusted and relied on God. But sometimes I still go back to that feeling of, not worthiness. There's this deep-rooted fear of rejection. So still working on that, but like reading through all of this stuff has been helping. So
Thanks for sharing, Bruce. I appreciate that.
I was just going to say that I feel like that orphan spirit can come and go throughout a day. I might start my day in the Word and feel very confident and reassured through Scripture, but then whatever life throws at me that day, I may go back into that feeling of rejection or whatever that might be. So I just think it reminds me how important it is to be consistent so that I can be filled up in the morning to get through those challenges and that orphan spirit.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think I had written down, the season I'm working full time as a nurse. I'm in grad school full time. And I know for me, like, as soon as my eyes have not been fixed on Christ, as soon as I start getting into the striving mentality or just in my own head with all the things I have to do, is when I start not operating like as an adopted child and as I start doing things in my own ability. So I think that's like a huge point to make. Like, even after we have received Christ and have stepped into that relationship and understand that we have been adopted in this family, like, we can still operate out of like old habits of that orphan spirit. At the end of the second lesson, it asks, like, what steps do you need to take to be proactive in pursuing your relationship with Christ? Is there anyone that feel like you personally, there are things right now that the Lord has given you of things that you want to be like working on? Or does anyone have anything that you have put on your heart that the Lord, you feel like, is going to have you like be processing as you're in Malawi, or a theme, or even like what He's called you to enter into as you go on this trip? Like, obviously all of you guys have said yes to going to Malawi. No one, I don't think anyone here was like, we were pulling your hair to like come. And then I know some of you even jumped on board like last minute too. Does anyone want to share like like how they felt led to come, or something that they feel like the Lord's having them work on as they enter into this journey to coming to Malawi?
Yeah, so we were some of those who jumped on real last minute, and I think something that I'm going to be processing while I'm there is just relying on the Lord in like difficult situations. So I think it's really easy to be here in the States and get comfortable in our routines, and even if our routines are filled with like good things, it's easy to fill up our schedules really quickly with a lot of good things or wasteful things. And so I think the Lord wants me to use my nursing to serve Him. I know that. And so I just want to be reminded of kind of like the bigger picture, and going outside of my comfort zone and being stretched in ways that I haven't in a while. So I'm excited and nervous at the same time about that, for being in Malawi.
Thanks for sharing, Lisa. Anyone else have anything along those lines?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the first thing that I thought of, just like where I'm at in life right now, one thing that I've been learning a lot is just trusting in God fully. Because I think I've been really struggling with like trusting fully. I'll trust God in like areas of my life that are going well, and areas of life that maybe I don't really, not that I don't care about as much, but that aren't as important to me. And so recently I've just been realizing that my plan is not always God's, and trusting that God's plan is the right plan and His timing is the right timing, and that I don't need to fix my situations and stuff like that. And so just trusting God completely and just giving my whole life over to Him and not just parts, is something that I've been really working on recently.
Thanks, Hannah. Anyone else have anything they want to share about that? Cool. Well, I'm just gonna look at the I keep wanting to say chapter, but it's not chapter. Lesson 3, the Make Me a Living Expression. And I would encourage you guys to look at this. I love reading. It had us read through John 1:35-51, which is just Jesus' call to the disciples and him inviting them into that, and then them leaving what they're doing and following him. And this kind of talks about a little bit what I was saying in the beginning of just like us getting really easily like into all the logistical parts of what we need to do and what we need to collect and what we need to buy and what we need to pack. But what does it look like and how does God want to use us while we're there? And some of you are like, I'm on the medical team. He's going to use me in nursing, or like, I'm going to teach kids. That's what he's going to do. And I think that's true. But I also think there's other ways that he will use you as an expression of his love, as you guys get to literally be hands and feet of Jesus to these people, and vice versa, because honestly, we will learn and experience Jesus through these kids, Malawian staff that you'll meet through, whether it's the Che team and the medical, or the teachers, or Abusa, or the random person on the road that you greet while you're walking down to chapel. Like, you will experience, I think, the hands and feet of Jesus through those people. But did anyone have anything from that section, or as they were thinking about, like, yeah, I think the Lord wants me to like have eyes for this while I'm here in this way of how to be used. I know as I was going through this, for me, I think it's easy to kind of just like get task oriented while I'm there sometimes with the clinic, because we see so many patients and like there's so many kids that are coming in and out, and it's kind of chaotic, and their parents are there and the kids are there, and we're like trying to get them all organized. And I think something that the Lord was kind of reminding me of was just like daily being able to kind of ask the Lord to like give me eyes for that mom or that kid that needs some extra love, or like I need to take a minute and like stop and pray for them, because who knows what's going on in their lives. But I have to be available to even be open to hear the Lord to like prompt me to do those things. And if I get in this task oriented mode of like, I'm going to have kids come in and out of the assessment room, and especially this year, like for the clinic, I know at least like we're doing more things than we have ever had before. Like there's like 6 nurses going this year, which is awesome, but we have all these stations of them getting their eyes checked and going to the dentist and in the assessment room, and then they need meds and there's wound care, and it's really easy to not see the actual person that we're coming in contact with and just performing this task. And I think something I know for me is going to be really daily making it a discipline to ask the Lord to like open to my eyes to like who he actually wants me to minister to, whether that's like a simple prayer or a simple like engaging with a child or whatever that may look like. So I know that's something that I was thinking through as I was kind of going through this, other than like the obvious things of like, he's going to use me to be a nurse. Like there's so much more that he has for us in ways that he wants to use us, other than just like this skill that you guys are bringing over. So any thoughts about that?
Hey, Sylvana.
Yeah.
One of the things I've enjoyed is having done this last year and now going back and doing it a second time through the lens of the experience. And on the last question of this chapter, where it says, ask Jesus how he wants you to be a living expression, one of the things that has really jumped out at me that I believe, for me anyway, is he wants us to be vulnerable. You know, we live, whether it be in Lubbock or in the United States or 10,000 miles away in Malawi, we are constantly putting on different masks, or that mask that we think we need to be wearing at that moment. And I think if we're truly going to be a mirror for Jesus with everyone that we come in contact with on the mission trip, we've got to be vulnerable, and we have to be honest enough to do what that means. And it's scary, and it's not in our nature as Westerners. But being vulnerable and being authentic is the word that I wrote down, because God is putting us in Malawi for a specific reason. That's not an accident. And if we're going to be the best we can be, we've got to surrender our vulnerability and just give that up and surrender that. And that jumped out at me this week when I read that chapter.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I've watched team members come and not be as vulnerable, and then throughout the trip them get to a place where they're able to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of it feels really risky. It feels risky to kind of put your heart out there and to be vulnerable. And you're in this completely different environment where you might only know a few team members, or maybe you don't even know anyone. But it's crazy to me to see the amounts that the Lord's able to use someone when they're actually willing to like put their heart out there, and love, in a certain way, or engage with like stories that they're interacting with. I think it's really easy just to hear and kind of gloss over those different things. So I think you're absolutely right. Like when we're able to actually empathize with what's going on, we're able to have the Lord's heart in that and engage with people by being vulnerable. And I think a lot of that is there's like a risk in that, is like really important. Thank you for bringing that point up.
I wanted to just say a tiny little thing too. It's funny, right, Rob, right before you started talking about vulnerability, the Lord was just putting that on my heart, because this will be my first time ever going on a mission trip, ever traveling out of the country. And so I know that I'm going to be in a vulnerable spot, which I'm super excited about, and something that the Lord, he's actually been talking to me a lot about vulnerability over the last couple weeks and months, and just reminding me that his vulnerability with us far exceeds any vulnerability that we're capable of, any vulnerability that we can offer up to him or to people. So there's like one conversation that I was having with Holy Spirit one day too, and I was just like, if you can be vulnerable, I can be vulnerable. So I just want to encourage anybody to just of you were already going to be in a place of vulnerability, because each one of us being and living in the living in Malawi for a month or however long, each one of us are going to be there. Like we're already in a spot of vulnerability, because it's not what we're used to, and it's not our day to day. So I just want to encourage you guys of like, when you were in a place of vulnerability, like you were usable. And I'm really excited because I feel such the anticipation that like I'm going to get to partner with the Lord and with people in ways that I can't even imagine. I can't even fathom, like I can't even get like the tiniest idea of it. But I just have such this anticipation to, or just of what he's going to do and how he's going to use me. And I'm just feeling such this confidence that he's going to use each and every one of you in ways that you would have never thought possible.
Thanks, Matt. Cool. Well, I'm gonna pray, and then we're gonna, if anyone else, nothing else to say, and then we're just gonna dive into some cultural and language stuff, and then I have some logistical things for you guys. There's a prayer on page 9 that's really awesome, and I'd encourage you guys just to read some of it. I love the word surrender, and that I surrender my heart for intimacy with you. I surrender my hands to your service, and I surrender my voice as your witness. So I just encourage you guys to kind of like read over that. But I'm going to pray, and then we'll dive into the next thing. Jesus, I come before you just humbled and expectant, Lord, of you to show up in all of our lives, God. You know all of our stories, and you know the reasons why you're bringing us to Malawi, God. You know the things that you want to reveal to us, Father. So, Lord, I just ask that we can be in a posture of being open-handed, God. A posture of being open-handed so that you can place anything in our hands that you want to place, Lord, and you can take anything out of our hands that you want to take, Lord. Will we just be able to live in a posture of surrender to you and to your will, trusting that you're the perfect Father, that you know what's best for our lives, God, and that we really can trust you. Like, you will always be faithful to us, God, even in the unknown, Lord. We can follow you step by step, God. So I just thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for these teams as you're putting them together. And as you just continue to prepare people's hearts, Father. In your Son's name, amen. Cool. Well, for those of you who have the 32 Chichewa words and phrases book, we're going to be looking at lessons 2 and 3. And one of the things that is a really big deal in Malawi is greetings. And it is very important that there's one little phrase that you guys learn, because as soon as you get off the plane, I guarantee you will be greeted with this phrase. And so in Malawi, they just, I've explained in America, or I remember Carly and I in 2013, we were with pastors teaching them English, and we were just talking to them about greetings in America. And as I was like interacting with some of these pastors talking about greetings in America, I was just thinking, like, man, in America, like, you really, like, you pass people all the time, you don't really even acknowledge their presence. Half the time people are on their phone staring at a screen. Like, you couldn't even recall if you passed a female or a male or a kid or an adult, because we're just like, we're so in our mind. And in Malawi, like, it's so the opposite. Like, every single person you pass, like, you will stop and greet them. You might not be shaking hands with every single person, but you will definitely, like, be saying hello. Often, like, the setup, if you guys look at you don't have to look at this second, but in the link, and so in the Friday email, you guys got a link that has the Malawi guidebook, and in there's a map, so you can kind of see, like, where on the map we stay at pastor's house, and then, like, where the clinic is and where the schools are and where everything else is. And there's this long road from Abusa's house down to the clinic, down to the church, down to the chapel, down to the orphanages, and you can kind of see that whole thing. And there's always, like, workers, and honestly, like, from the time we leave Abusa's house to the time we get there, you might have greeted 10 different people. And it's a really cool way to just, I don't know, there's something simple about being in Malawi that I love. And something that's just like, yes, you greet people when you walk by them. And so we're just going to teach you guys this one little phrase that it might seem overwhelming, but I promise you, like, by day 3 or 4, you'll be saying it, rolling off your tongue, because you've said it 1,000 times. And it's just essentially, like, they're like, hello, how are you greeting? That you'll say, like, when you get up in the morning to go to the shower, and at meals, and again, like, anywhere. So I think it's on, I don't actually have the book, but I know what phrase we're going to go over. So I don't know what page it's on. Karen, you probably could help me tell me what page it's on. But it's the saying Muli Bwanji. If you guys can, I don't know who has the book in front of them, because I do not, but I don't know what page it's on.
It's on page 11 still.
Page 11. Thank you, Lethal. So as you can tell, you're essentially reading it pretty phonetic, like Muli Bwanji. So you can just kind of say that to yourselves, Muli Bwanji. Okay, and that's just a thing, essentially, like, hello, how are you? And they'll say it really fast, and they'll, like, throw you off, but it's okay. Just take your time. Say what you can say. So just Muli Bwanji. So if I said it to Mackenzie, I'm going to have Mackenzie say the greeting back to me. So I'm going to say, if I'm passing Mackenzie, I'd say, Mackenzie, Muli Bwanji. And then the saying back, if someone said that to you, you would say,
Indili Bueno.
So Indili Bueno, like, I am good.
Kaya Inu.
So Indili Bueno. I want you guys to say that to yourselves. Indili Bueno. And then you're going to say Kaya Inu. So then you're saying, I am fine. How are you? Is what you're saying. So the first greeting, if you're the one greeting someone, the greeting is going to be Muli Bwanji.
Muli Bwanji.
Muli Bwanji.
Muli Bwanji.
Okay. And then if someone's saying that, you're going to say Indili Bueno. Indili Bueno. Kaya Inu. And then if if you're receiving that, you would say, Indili bueno, like I am good too. And then you end everything in Zakomo. If you ever get in trouble anytime, just say Zakomo. You can say Zakomo, like even in a greeting sometimes walking down the road, like it's hello, it's actually translated to thank you. I think you guys did that last week, just the word Zakomo, but you also like can say it even walking by, like Zakomo. So I'm going to do the whole thing with Karen so you guys can kind of hear it. So Karen, muli buanji.
Ndili bueno, kaya inu?
Indili bueno, Zakomo.
Zakomo.
Does anyone want to try? Lindsay, Wenzel? Carly and Rachel and I made Lindsay practice for a long time. Lindsay is a college friend of mine. So maybe she.
Muli buanji.
Indili bueno, kaya inu.
Indili bueno, Zakomo.
Zakomo, look at that.
I learned on the mountain that it's better to ask them first because there's less things that you have to say.
Good advice right there.
Hey, Silvana.
Yeah.
When we went, we were so prepared to say Muli Bwanji, but everybody always said Wazuko Bwanji. They went the morning, afternoon. Which is preferable?
Say that one more time. In the morning.
The Wazuko.
Oh.
And then,
so there's a different greeting for the morning that's like really similar, especially when we're walking to the shower. A lot of the kitchen staff will greet us and it'll be a little bit different. So we will get into that. It's just Wazuka Bwanji, like in the morning. But don't worry about, I'm going to just tell everyone right now, don't worry about that. But eventually, yes, in the morning, there's like a different greeting. And essentially that greeting is just saying like, how did you sleep last night? And you're just saying, I slept well. And then there's different greetings they use throughout the day, but Muli Bwanji is just kind of like the core, like main one. And they'll respond and they have so much grace for us not knowing the terms. And like, they really appreciate like, and they'll correct you when you like try to speak Chichewa. But they know what you're saying essentially, even if you would say Muli Bwanji in the morning and it may be a different greeting they may ask you.
And I'll jump in for just a second, Silvana. Lindsay said it's easier if you start Muli Bwanji, and she's right. That's the faster one because you don't have to stick that Kaya Inu in there, so you get to cheat just the least little bit. Here's the catch. If this is the first time you are meeting someone and you are in their home place, don't start the greeting. As the visitor, you're not allowed to start the greeting. So the Malawian must start it first. Now, once you've been on the Grace Center for a couple of days, now you're home, this is your place, you're welcome to start the greeting. No problem at all. But just remember that, and then when you go out in the village, don't start the greeting. Let someone else do it. So you got to learn that Kaya Inu, and you guys can do it. I know you can. You're going to be great.
Karen, I want to add to that, though. Something my mom taught me when we started going that Sil kind of mentioned, be ready as soon as you get there to do this greeting, because not only does wearing Chitinje when we arrive show respect, but speaking their language shows a lot of respect. And so in the airport, when you go through customs, they're not going to expect you to know their language per se. So say Muli Bwanji when you're handing your passport, when they're checking your bags, because it gives you a little bit more chance of going through without complications, instead of them thinking, oh, I might check on this American person, or it just gives them less reason to want to harass you. So it's just more respectful, and it also just kind of gives you a way through the airport a little easier. So be ready when you get off the airport to start the greeting, and hopefully it helps you through a little easier.
And I just want to encourage you guys, if you don't have this book, it is really helpful to get, because, and you guys, you'll pick up the language faster than you might think, just little phrases here and there, because we say them so often. Even as Americans, like, we'll say them to each other, like, with no Malawians around, just because that's just what we do. I, like, still use some Chichewa words, like, even here in Lexington with people. So I would just encourage you guys to go through the lessons if you can. If you're around people that have been in Malawi before, you can ask them, or even, and too, like, even when we're on the plane and stuff, like, don't stress about the language, but it is helpful just to look at a few keywords, especially the Mulibwanji and the Zikomo. And the kids are so good at teaching us too. So that's always really fun, and a good way to like connect with them is like they love when we have these books and pull them out, and they'll sit there with us and they'll teach us and go through different words, and they'll do the English and you do the Chichewa. And so one more time, we're going to go through the Mulibwanji. So it's Mulibwanji, and you guys would say Indili Bueno Kaya Inu. And I would say Indili Bueno Zikomo. And then you would say it back Zikomo. So it's like thank you twice. So that's just kind of what they do. Sometimes you'll hear Malawians, they'll say, they have like, you know, every culture has their own like slang. So they'll say Mulibwa, and they like shorten it. And they'll go really fast, and I'm like, Mulibwa, and you're like, whoa, what'd you say? And they're just shortening it, but they're saying Mulibwanji. But you'll kind of hear that too as we get there.
Silvana, the other thing about the book and is that there are cultural notes on every lesson at the beginning, those first 20 words. And it's important if you go ahead and read those before you go. Even if you can't grasp all the Chichewa, if you have the answers to those questions, that's 20 questions you do not have to ask your team leader because you already know them. Now, there will be another 100 that you will want to ask your team leader, but give the girl a break and read the notes there so that you're prepared and ready when you get there for as much of the cultural stuff as you can handle. It'll just, like Mackenzie was saying, it'll just show your respect so much more if your team leader's not having to chase you down and say, oh no, please don't do that. Oh, please do it this way. Then you'll just kind of like have those little cultural clues already in place that will help you to have an amazing, tremendous experience.
Yes. Cool. Any questions about that? Okay. So on Friday, Karen's been sending out these team emails, and I know it's a lot of information sometimes, but anything you would ever really need, they're going to be in those Friday emails. So I would encourage you to look at them, to read them, and to download whatever we have on there. So this past Friday, they sent a link with the Malawi guidebook. There was, I think you guys might have gotten a previous edition, but this is like the updated edition that you guys need to download. So I would encourage you to download it. And seriously, it is like incredible. We haven't had this until this year, and it essentially has like anything you would possibly need to know about your upcoming trip is going to be in this kind of like this slideshow. I know I downloaded it to like my iBooks on my phone and my iPad just so like I have it on there. Kayla, or the link also there was about all the kids. So you guys can look at faces of the kids and see names, and when we're there, it's helpful to have that on your phone. And I know even like as a past team member, people are like asking me different questions about certain kids I don't know, but it really is just like a solidified place to see like names and ages of kids. And right now that might not matter to you guys, but when you get there, believe me, you'll want to know like, how old is Lontia? How old is this person? How old is this person? Like, what's their story? And so that's just helpful to have like a face to a name kind of thing for you to look, because there's a lot of kids that we'll be interacting with on a daily basis. So I just kind of want to go through with you guys a little bit of the Malawi guidebook. I think you guys looked at some of the core values maybe last week, but I'm just going to touch on them again just because they're really important. We really want you guys to get in your heads kind of why this is important to us and like what we're doing. So if you have the guidebook pulled up, it's on, what page is it? Can't see the page. It's on page 4, I believe, of the guidebook. And it's just kind of our core values of Circle of Hope. So the first one is community, and valuing relationships. First off, our relationship with God, but second off with our team members, and third with the children, and fourth with the Malawians. And all of those relationships are really important. Like, as we've talked about already, like on a spiritual level, like us going, like, what is God wanting us to do? Like, we're going to have time for us to connect daily with the Lord in the mornings as we eat breakfast, or as you guys journal at night, and kind of process with the Lord, like what's going on in your days or what he's showing you on a team level basis. And we will have, after, I think you guys, this is your second meeting as new team members, but then you'll meet with your individual teams. And like, those people are really important. Those are going to be people that you're going to be having these experiences with. Those are going to be the people that you're going to be processing with and debrief and serving alongside with, whether it's in the clinic or it's in the schools or on the evangelism team. Like, those are going to be your people. And that's just honestly a really cool thing for us, that team members that have gone previously. Like, there's really good friends of mine that I wouldn't know if it wasn't for like this family of people through Circle of Hope, and just serving with them on a 2 or 3 week trip in previous years. So that's just really cool to get the way we get to like meet different people, and learn from each other and learn from each other's experiences too, because all of us bring different experiences coming. Community with the children is incredible, as you guys will just get to experience time with them and learn from them and learn to love them. And it's really cool to see different people connect with different kids, and whether they're similar or they relate. And I love getting to see who new people connect with, because you kind of always like, it's fun to guess like who they're going to connect with. And it's just really cool to see how like just the family of God and getting to love on certain kids and everyone getting loved in that way. And then the Malawians. And I think this is just a really cool thing of getting to see like a really cool picture of the church. And if you've never have traveled overseas before, it's really cool to get to serve alongside another culture, because their world perspective is just so different. And so it's just a really cool like thing that we get to do as part of like the Capital C Church. And kind of getting just a broader scope for who God is and what Christianity looks like outside of like this American Christianity. And so that might be some of the chain members in the clinic that we're working with, or the school teachers that you guys get to work with. And there's a lot of, cultural barriers that come up, and language barriers. And it really is a beautiful thing and I encourage you guys to come open-minded and to be just willing to be patient in those relationships, because there can be misunderstandings and there can be different barriers. But like, I know I have found really sweet friendships with some of the people that I've been able now to go back consistently and build in, and they're like friends now. So that's just really cool. The second core value is we live by the word of God and the power of prayer. This is really important, as like, yes, we'll be having debrief, and yes, we'll be doing worship and different things throughout the summer with each other as a team. But like, really, like, you should only be relying on like your relationship with Jesus. Like, this is you and God. It's not you. Sure, as brothers and sisters, we're being filling each other up. But like, while we're in Malawi and before we go to Malawi, it really is going to be important for you guys spending time in the Word and spending time with the Lord and spending time in prayer. Praying for some of the children, praying for asking the Lord things for yourself, praying for team members, praying for salvation. Some of these kids who don't know the Lord, freedom and deliverance. There's a lot of things that we might see in church, and we'll talk about all this later too, but things that we might see just cultural wise of like where the enemy has strongholds on a cultural generational level in Malawi, on some of the Malawians, and then just getting to pray for healings, whether that's spiritual healings or physical healings. And it's really cool to see how the Holy Spirit works in a different cultural context too. So I'm excited for you guys to get to experience that. And then the third one is we expect transformation. We expect the way we are and the things we do to make a difference in people's lives. So whether that's just the goal of Circle of Hope is like we see the transforming of the future of the children as they experience the love of Jesus through staff that we already have at the Grace Center, the Malawians, whether it's through team members that get to come and we just get to love on the kids for a few weeks, and just the different programs that they're involved in, whether that's the school or even through church and them experiencing like Sunday school or chapels and different ways like that. And then we expect our team members to go home transformed, having experienced the love of Jesus through the children and the staff. And that really is like your guys' ownership in that. You guys will get to choose if this is a one-time experience and you guys kind of go home and it was a one-time experience, or you really engage with what God is doing in your heart and what you've seen him do while you were in Malawi. And I think all of that kind of depends how well you spend in these next, we leave the first team, Carly and myself and Tad and Kayla and Teresa Short leave in like 8 weeks, which is crazy. So it'll go by fast. So like between now and whenever you guys are leaving, what does it look like for you guys to be preparing? So I know I'm like rushing through everything. I just want to make sure you guys are doing good on time. So we're going to look at the packing list. You guys, if you open that Malawi guide, it's in there. And this is just kind of different stuff. And I kind of jotted down some things that I know I always make sure to have in my stuff. So there's 2 pages of packing list of men's clothes and women's clothes. 2 important things with clothing that I just want to touch on is women. It is really, really important, and this is just a cultural sensitivity and thing that we want to respect. You'll be seeing, if you haven't, I'm sure a lot of all of you guys have seen pictures by now, but we'll be wearing chitenjis over our skirts. So you need to make sure that you have, I normally am able to make it with 2 or 3 skirts that go down to like mid-calf to ankle, and then we'll wear, and you guys will get chitenje when we get there to wrap over ourselves, and we'll wear that daily. It's just a really good way for us to respect their culture. In their culture, the back of the knee is like a very promiscuous part of the female body, so that's why it's covered, and you'll never see a Malawian woman essentially not wearing that. If we did see it, and like times are changing, but generally, like if a woman's wearing pants or shorts or a short skirt, like they're known as a prostitute, like in their culture. So it's really important that we honor them. You'll never be out of your chitenje, like 2 a.m. going to the bathroom, you're wearing a chitenje, like debrief when it's just Americans, you're wearing a chitenje to school. Essentially the only time it's off is like when you're in your tent, then you can wear whatever you want to wear, but just want to touch on that. And then Sundays for guys to like just encourage you guys to bring at least 1 outfit, if not 2, of just something nice to wear. A lot of guys will just wear like button downs and khakis and nice shoes. And then guys, essentially you can wear shorts the rest of the time and short sleeve shirts. And we'll talk about laundry another time, but essentially we'll have a laundry schedule. So you'll get to do laundry at least once a week generally. And I don't think that'll be different this year, just so you guys can know. But you guys can read the different clothing items there. With clothing, I would just suggest too, essentially like the days are pretty warm, so like in the 80s, but the mornings and the evenings are chillier. So like at night, like normally like the girls would put on leggings underneath their chitenje for debrief in the room at night, and then like have like a light jacket to wear at night. And the mornings are kind of the same thing. A lot of us will sit out on abusa. Abusa means pastor, for those of you who don't know that word. We'll call abusa PD abusa. But we'll do like devotions in the morning and have breakfast outside. And oftentimes I like wear a jacket or a sweatshirt in the morning. But by the time I'm walking down to the clinic, I don't even bring it with me because it's warmed up. But that's kind of just the weather. It's very dry. It's not humid at all because it is dry season. And I think in the 4 times I've been there, it drizzled for maybe 5 minutes of one afternoon one time. So that's just kind of weather-wise, kind of what to expect. It's pretty predictable every day. And then we'll all go to
Ronna, I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
For the guys, you had said about wearing shorts most of the time, but actually when you're working in the clinic or when you're working in the school, I want you to wear your long pants. So wear shorts later. Like if you're playing with the kids, so if you don't want to walk back up the hill, stick them in your backpack and change them in Timothy's home or something. But when we're working in the clinic or in the school, we need to go ahead and wear the guys wear their long pants.
Okay. Shoe wise, everyone kind of finds their thing that's comfortable with. The last 2 years I've just worn Chacos pretty much 24/7. Other than Sunday, I'll wear like flats. Some people like wearing tennis shoes. I hate wearing socks there, so I only have socks like when I sleep. But anything like that's like a good walking shoe. Like you want something with a good support because like everything's dirt and rocks, and so you don't want like a little thin pair of flip-flops. Like those will not survive. Like I've thrown out so many shoes. You probably want to wear flip-flops like a cheap $2 pair for like the showers. Like in the morning, you'll just wear them to the shower and back. And pretty much other than that, I like would have a good shoe to wear. So that's kind of like clothing. And throughout this too, like all of your team leaders will be available for you guys to ask questions too, of like, hey, do I need this? Do I not need this? For like medicines, a lot of times, like some of us will get 3 or 4 of us and all kind of share bringing like certain medicines, just because not all of us need Tylenol, Imodium. Like the only thing personally that you really need is the malaria medication. And that's like really, really, really important. Your team leaders will be on you with taking your malaria medication. Like we've had a lot of cases of malaria the last 2 years, and a lot of it is, I think, weird season we had, but also like it's important to take our medication the same time every day and to take it consistently. And even as depending what medication you're on, like you'll have to start it before your trip and take it after your trip. So that's really, really important. So definitely get on that if you have not already, with like vaccinations and with getting like a prescription for the malaria medication. I personally take Malarone. I think it is definitely the most expensive one, but it's the one with the least side effects. Other people have different preferences, but overall I have never had anything go wrong with the Malarone. Other things you'll see, there's the packing list. There's toiletry stuff and tool stuff. Headlamps are a must have. You will want this. It gets dark fast. Like we're up at the house by dark, but going to the bathroom, doing anything in your tent, like you're going to want a good headlamp. So I would just make sure that you have one of those. And then
Silvana, while you're on medications, let's talk for just a minute about making sure that you tell your team leader if you're feeling sick at all.
Okay.
So you can just talk about that.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a tendency to you feel kind of like a baby, or like, oh, I'm fine. I'm getting a cold or whatever. But it really is important, just because we're in a completely different environment, different bacteria, different viruses, that it is important for you to tell your team leader that, like, if you're not feeling good, just so that they're able to identify, like, hey, like, are these symptoms of malaria? Like, and just keeping an eye out on you, because it's just really important. And some of those bugs can hit pretty fast. And, there is different stuff. Like a lot of people will get traveler's diarrhea, and people will get weird colds or like random stuff, and all of that's fine. But we do want to, like, we take malaria really, really seriously. And so I just want to like set you guys up now with the expectation, like if we think you need to go to the clinic to get tested with malaria or like for malaria, like you just need to let us send you to the clinic and get you tested for malaria. Like it's not really a point of argument. Like you will not win. Like we've thrown people in the bus before to go get tested and then they've been positive. So it's just really important, because people can get sick with malaria really fast if we don't address it with the beginning symptoms. So I just encourage you guys, like, once you do get there, if you aren't feeling good, like, don't keep it to yourself. Just say something. We're not going to make a big deal about it. We just need to know to keep it on our radar, just so we can, like, make sure we're checking in with you, and decipher and discern if we do need to, like, take more steps if we do think there's, like, a potential for malaria. If you can, I know a lot of places they'll let you, like I know the travel clinic I go to here in Lexington, like they'll just give me a prescription of Cipro, which is good for any type of like GI bug stuff. And so if you can get a prescription for Cipro, like I would encourage you to ask if you haven't already been to the doctor to get your malaria medication. It's just a good prescription to have that will have you guys take if you still have like symptoms of GI stuff for more than 24 hours. Other medications that are helpful we kind of have down there. But you can ask more questions as time goes on, and I'll give you time to ask questions at the end of this kind of section on packing stuff. But it is really important. Also, if you have any other like chronic illnesses, let your team leader know. They need to know, especially if you have like an EpiPen or anything else like that. We like need to know those things.
And I'm gonna just say what Silvana said again. If you're sick, you need to tell your team leader. That means if you sneezed, if you had diarrhea one time, if you have a headache, you need to tell your team leader. Just tell them. They're not going to harass you unless they think your symptoms are malaria symptoms. In which case, just get in the bus and go to the doctor. No arguments. The other thing is, when your team leader tells you to do something, do it and do it exactly as she tells you or he tells you to do. That means that if your team leader tells you you just had a quinine shot, which is for malaria, and you need to eat this whole packet of cookies and drink this whole bottle of Fanta, I don't want to hear your excuse, and your team leaders don't want to hear your excuse of you don't eat sugar or you're not going to drink the Fanta. If your team leader tells you to do it, please do it. This is very important along the way. So that's just my experience speaking, and we want to keep you safe and healthy.
Thanks, Karen. I would say just like things I kind of wrote down, they're on the list, but things that are like very helpful. Baby wipes, they're a lifesaver. I would encourage you guys to bring them. You want baby wipes for your feet. They get really nasty and you don't want to climb into your sleeping bag with nasty feet. I bring some type of bag for my dirty laundry so my tent doesn't smell. I have like a sealable bag that I use for that. Headlamp I talked about. Ziploc bags are just kind of helpful to have sometimes. And then dryer sheets. I know it sounds weird, but they just help things not smell as much. And I would also encourage you, I'm sure it's on here somewhere, but I always pack one outfit for traveling home and I stick it in a Ziploc bag with dryer sheets. And then when I leave, I put it in my carry-on. And when I get back to the States, I change into it because you don't realize how bad you smell. But when you get back to the States, you're like, oh my gosh, you kind of reek of Africa. And so it's just good to have an outfit that is clean and not even went through the laundry in Africa. Just because you don't realize the smell that you have when you get back until you get back to the States. Food stuff, it is fine to bring drink mixes, instant coffee, granola bars, granola, stuff like that. But just for the sake of keeping out small rodents and bugs of your tent, I would make sure you have a way to seal all of that. Sort of saying in some type of closed container, or don't bring things that's going to go bad. I would encourage you to stick to dry stuff. A lot of us do bring granola bars and stuff. And for malaria medication, most of it can give you upset stomach. So often your team leaders will say, hey, go take your malaria medication as we're getting ready for dinner. But we also it's good just to have even a little piece of a granola bar to take it with, because your stomach can get upset often with it. So it's good to have even a box of crackers with you or something to take it with. As far as just a lot of people always ask charging things, whether it's cameras or phones or whatnot. We do have essentially a charging station, but depending on how many people are on your team, you might not get to charge something every night. So we kind of just mindful of who's getting to charge stuff, or I know in the clinic, we often will have stuff we need to charge for the clinic. So obviously that stuff's going to take precedent over your cell phone or your camera. So sometimes people will bring those portable chargers just so they can have for themselves, and then every few days then charge. That's just helpful to kind of relieve the stress and the burden of the one area where we have to charge our stuff. Other packing stuff, all of us will be responsible for a second bag that'll be essentially supplies, and all that looks different, and you guys will get assigned what that looks like, and we're responsible as team members to have that second bag, and it'll be $200 for that second bag. So I know on the medical team, some of us are bringing different medical supplies and a lot of tents because we're the first team that's going. You can buy, and I can get the link to Karen, or she probably already has a link. You can get, just to get the most weight for your buck, essentially. There's these massive duffel bags on Amazon that you can get for pretty cheap. I think $15, but the bag itself literally weighs 2 pounds. So then you can literally put 48 pounds of medical supplies or clothing donations or whatever you're going to be responsible in your bag to bring. And there'll be more details as that comes out, because I know every team that's going to look different with what we're bringing. I know Carly and I were just had planned what each person in our team will be bringing. So that will be in the coming weeks, more information on that, and we can talk more about that. But I know I bought a few of those duffel bags on Amazon, and they're really, really helpful just because you can kind of make it any shape you want, and you can shove tons of weight in you don't want a suitcase that weighs 25 pounds and then you're bringing 25 pounds of stuff. You just wasted all of that space, because you can have one 50-pound bag And then a carry-on bag, you can have a 15-pound bag. So it's just, it's if you don't have a lighter suitcase, I would encourage you just to like keep that in mind, that you might want to look for one.
Yeah, those duffels are about $20. And Rob, you were just looking at them the other day. How much were they?
I'm not sure. Susie looked on Amazon, but they're very reasonable. And I think we're going to get ours for the Lubbock team and just give them to the church when we get back.
Yeah, well, I'll send out a link, and Rob, just send me the link that you got the other day, and
Okay.
and I'll send out a link in the Friday email so you guys have that.
Also, some of us, like, if you want to bring like little toys or gifts for the kids, you can. Some of us will bring like I don't even know, Jolly Ranchers, and like we'll pass them out one day, or like different toys and whatnot. And I'm blanking on what even to bring toy wise. Some of you might already have sponsor children, or you know people that have sponsor children, and you can bring little gifts for your sponsor kids. Or if you end up deciding to sponsor a child at the end, if you want to bring something in advance, knowing like, hey, I do want to like pray and figure out like who's a child that I end up connecting with that I want to sponsor, then you already have something to like give. And that was something I got to do my first summer. I got to like end up picking up a sponsored child, and then got to like give her a gift at the end of that trip, which was really cool. And then spending money, all of the bills for when we go to Malawi have to be after the year. What year is it?
2006.
So all of the bills that you get that you're traveling with for the purpose of, oh my gosh, what's it called?
Spending money.
Have to be after 2006, and get $100 bills. That money essentially is for you. Girls get to buy Chitenje, but they're literally like $3 to $5. They're not expensive. We always, during church, for the 2 weeks that each of you probably will go to church, we always put money in for tithing. And then if you want to buy Coke and whatnot, or if you're going on safari, or when we go to the lake, there's the Curio Mart, which just has like a bunch of little knickknacks. Everything's really cheap, but it just kind of adds up sometimes if you get all that. The knickknacks are really good for like a lot of people that have like sponsors. Like we'll get our sponsors like little gifts to bring back, just something to say thank you for. So I know most people will bring like $200 and might not even use that. And we'll keep that secure. Your team leader will keep that secure and take care of all of the switching of money. That's nothing you guys will have to worry about. We'll take care of all of that.
Yeah,
So,
I recommend that you have $100 per week, so $200 to $300 for a team. If you're there longer, like interns, you might want to have $400 or $500. Nobody's going to make you spend all the money, so you can always take it home with you. But it's better to have the money with you.
any questions about packing before I move to our last thing?
I had a question about shoes. The packing list says closed-toed shoes, but you said Chacos, which are open-toed. So do we not really need to have a pair of closed-toed shoes?
I know the closed-toed shoes is more of like, we just try to look nicer on Sundays. And so a lot of us will just bring like, at least the girls will, and the guys too should be wearing closed-toed shoes for church. But like, we'll just bring like little flats, or even like knockoff Toms. Those are like awesome closed-toed shoes, and they're small and easy to pack. You can literally go to Walmart and get $10 knockoff Toms, just to wear to church to have. I would say, I don't know really, I'm trying to think any other way, like any other place that you would need the closed-toed shoes. You're normally fine in just Chacos or Keens, but the closed-toed really for church is nice to have like some type of flats or like a Tom kind of like shoe.
Yeah, the road back and forth to Abusa's house is really rough. So if you are a person who tends to stub your toes or trip, then there are some brands of Chaco kinds of shoes that have a closed-toed. So if you know you're that kind of person that you're always going to run into stuff or hit your foot on the rock, it's better to go ahead and search for that other kind of shoe, so that you're not having bloody, beat-up toes all the time.
I have a question. So I have Chacos that I was planning on bringing. Do I need a different type of shoe for Lake Day, or is it fine just to use?
I literally wear my Chacos like the entire time. So the only time I wear something different is like to the shower, and then like I'll bring like a knockoff Tom like shoe and I'll like wear those. Sometimes like at debrief even, like it's nice to have those little flip flops just to slip on because you're not walking far. You're walking like 15 steps inside the house, 15 steps back out to the tent. So it's just nice to have like something to slip on sometimes. Or even like the knockoff Birks. I wore those one summer that are just like the sandal kind of like shoe, but they literally got destroyed. Like they were from Target. They were brand new. Yeah. They were completely destroyed by the end of the 3 weeks. So that's why it's good to have more of a durable shoe, just because like the dirt and stuff and the rocks, they really are rough like on the shoes.
Okay, so I've had like 10 broken toes. So yes, I am really, I'm not good from that standpoint. So like tennis shoes, does anybody wear like closed toe?
Karen does.
Yep.
Karen always does.
Yeah, I've always got the Chitinje tennis shoe look going because they just are better for me, and it's kind of funny looking, but it works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Thank you.
I have one more question. For under like sanitary supplies, do I need to worry about bringing toilet paper or just like wet wipes?
Just wet wipes. It's not a bad idea. I'm trying to think what I normally do. So I'm a person that has to use the restroom everywhere I go. So
Yeah.
if you're drinking proper water, which all of you will be continuously told to do that as well, you'll need to use the restroom. So I always have I think I always bring like the little Kleenex tissues kind of with me just so I have when we're like down at the school and whatnot to use. There's bathrooms like throughout the Grace Center to use, but there won't be toilet paper other than up at Abusa's house. So if you don't have something with you, then you're kind of in trouble. But normally always someone is carrying, especially people that have been to Malawi, they normally have something in their backpack.
I usually grab a roll of toilet paper from the supplies. So and just stick that in my backpack and it'll last for a long time in my backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shelby, you don't need to bring toilet paper from America.
No.
You get that there. So don't waste space or weight in your bag for that. Just bring wet wipes and then you can get what you need there in Malawi.
Yeah. And while Silvana is talking about water, it says here on the list somewhere to bring a Nalgene. And we're actually serious about a Nalgene because cheap brands of water bottles, once you pour hot boiling water into it to clean it out, they'll melt. And I've watched that happen as team members have gone to wash out their bottle and then it's just kind of like melted there on the table with the hot water. So you really want to get an Nalgene, something that's stronger and is not going to melt when you go to clean it out.
Liesl, did you have a question?
I did. If the back of the knee is promiscuous, what do we do on lake day, or what's a swimsuit attire?
Good question. Lake day is kind of like the only exception. So essentially like to the lake when we leave, most of us will wear our bathing suits like underneath and then have a skirt and a Chitinje and our t-shirt over. When we're at the lake though, like we're allowed to be in our bathing suits. Bathing suits need to be one piece. A lot of the girls, if not every single girl, always wears like shorts just because even after like a long exposure of having skirts on the whole time, you just feel very uncomfortable wearing like a bathing suit. So we just will wear shorts. And then as soon as we leave, like we'll change back into our Chitinje and skirts. Also something for girls, a lot of girls will wear like spandex sometimes underneath their skirts just to prevent, just because we're doing a lot of walking and people's legs will get rashes and stuff. So if you need to do that, I would encourage you to get a pair of like the bicycle ones are normally helpful. But you always have to have a skirt on underneath your Chitinje, just to clarify that. So good question though. Any other question about packing? And then I'm just going to talk about day to day real quick. And again, as questions come up as you guys are buying stuff, like feel free to reach out to your leaders that will have all of the info. Cool. I'm just going to go through, and you can follow me along too if you want in the readers, just about the day-to-day in Malawi. So showers, obviously you have, 15 to 25 people on your team, and that's a lot of people to get to the showers. The girls and the guys have separate showers. The guys have one shower, and the girls there's 3 showers we kind of rotate through. And we'll kind of wake up in the morning and get people up. We'll have the next, start off showers, and you'll know who's going to be getting you up to shower and say, hey, you're next. And we'll kind of rotate that way. So the days normally start, like, we'll have like some type of breakfast set up from 7 to 7:30, and then want to be down at the chapel by 8. So sometimes the first people getting up are getting up at 5:30, and normally that'll be your team leader, and then they'll just kind of assign who they're waking up after that, and we'll go in some type of order. And then showers are quick, they're fast, they're bucket showers. It's not as bad as it sounds. Like, the Malawian staff they'll bring you a big water, and you think, I have a lot of hair, I always have leftover water. Like, it's a big bucket, and it's pretty warm. They bring it in, and there's a little cup in there, and you just kind of head to toe. You bring all your stuff in, you change in there, you use your soap. These are like fast showers. When there's a lot of people, we don't want to be taking forever in the showers. So you don't need to you're just kind of in and out. With showers too, I would encourage you guys, if you have a towel that those camping towels, you don't have to, but just to save space in your bags. I've done this before of getting the absorbent towels. If you know anyone that has those that are small and compactable, they save so much room in your suitcase. Just because then they're drying all day, but those are awesome. So that's kind of how showers work. Sometimes, once in a while, people will shower after they come up from playing with the kids. There's not time for everyone to do that, and team to team, the team leaders will kind of decipher what needs to be, how that will work, and we'll kind of get into some type of schedule. But that's kind of how showers work. So essentially, then breakfast normally will be out at 6:30 or 7, and the way we'll do it this year is you can kind of just come and get your breakfast, and that's kind of time also for you to have time with the Lord, or kind of get your stuff gathered to go start your day. Like I said, a lot of us will grab tea, breakfast, and then sit on the porch, spend some time with the Lord. I normally even have my headphones in and kind of do our own thing. And something that we'll be doing this year that will be helpful is we're going to have a whiteboard that's in the family room area, and that's going to kind of have the schedule for the day. So if we do give announcements to the teams and some of you are in the shower, you're getting ready, or you're out on the porch, you won't miss anything. You just want to make sure that you get in the habit in the morning to check the whiteboard. That's going to have all the information that you need for the day. If we're doing something different, if you need to be bringing something with you that day, or whatever that the case may be for that day. So that will be really helpful. And then the leader doesn't have to repeat themselves 10,000 times to everyone, because the mornings are kind of us just doing our own thing. So then in the mornings we have to sign in, and that's just a way for the office to keep account of who's on the property. And so we'll go down to the office, which is near the school, and we'll all sign in every morning with Mr. Mbota at the beginning of the day. And then we'll go over to chapel. All the school kids, they have chapel before they go to school, and that's going to be a really cool time. And we'll get into this as we get closer, but we'll probably ask some of you guys to lead chapels. You won't have to come up with a story. We'll assign hey, you're going to be talking about Jonah today, and we'll do little skits, and everyone helps out. And normally we'll talk about it the night before of hey, who wants to volunteer tomorrow, in the skit, and whoever's leading, if Brett and Liesel were leading for it, they'd have what they wanted to do, but then they'd invite the rest of the team to help with different parts in the skit. And that's just a really fun time. And the kids will lead songs. It's normally chapel's 15 minutes. It's not anything long. And then the kids will all go off to school. And then depending on what your project is, if it's clinic, we'll go over to the clinic, and we'll start our day with the clinic, and whatever that entails. Education, you guys would do your thing in the schools. And then we meet back for lunch, and we eat with the kids, and that's just a really fun time. We get to eat what they're eating. So it's just ensima and beans, which the ensima is just essentially corn flour that they throw in a big pot and turns into this dough. And then we'll eat greens and beans, and we just sit with the kids, and that's just a really great time to build relationships with the kids and interact with them in that time. And yeah, if you do bring a snack during that time, you don't want to be eating that in front of everyone else. You need to be respectful. And I would encourage you guys, if that's a challenge to you guys to be eating their foods, just mentally become prepared for that. But also you don't be ripping out your own food in the middle of while the kids are eating what we're serving them. And I challenge you guys too in that this is what they do for their entire lives. We can challenge ourselves for a few weeks and do life like they do. I think that's part of the process in the uncomfortableness of that. I know in the States, I eat a really strict diet because I have an autoimmune disease. And so I just know like what it's going to look like when we're there. So it's just a way to challenge ourselves in that. And if you guys have questions about that, or there's issues, or I don't know if anyone is vegan or vegetarian, we can talk about that. But just so you guys know, I would just mentally prepare yourselves for that. And honestly, it's not even that bad. Like I enjoy like most of the stuff we eat. We eat really well. And then after lunch, we go back to projects, whatever that looks like. It'll daily kind of change. Again, big thing. If this is your first trip, I would encourage you to come prepared to be flexible. And if you have been overseas, you know that you need to be flexible because things are ever changing. And then we kind of get to spend time with the kids after our afternoon project is done. And that's just a really fun time for us to get to know them, whether we're playing soccer or sometimes we'll do chores with the kids. I don't know if we're doing that again this year. We'll play games, we'll sing, and we just like spend time. Sometimes we'll do Bible studies with them. We'll learn Chewa, whatever that looks like. And then at 5 o'clock, we kind of say bye to the kids. We all head back up the hill. And then normally we have about like, I don't know, normally around 6 o'clock is when we start debrief. So you kind of have that hour just to like get yourself together. If you needed to take a little 30-minute power nap, go for it. If we needed to shower and there was time in that time, as long as you're at debrief, then that's okay. And then we just have right before, as the cooks are preparing dinner, we just like to debrief our days, and the team leaders will lead that every night. I don't know if every team will have worship, but a lot of them will normally have just some time of like prayer and worship and just like team fellowship, and then just kind of processing what we saw that day or what was going on, or just like sharing highs and low. And every night really will look different, and that's just going to be like the discernment of the team leader for the night. And then dinner will be served, and we just kind of all hang out during that time. And then after dinner, you're kind of free to like play games with other team members if you want to go straight to bed and pass out. I know everyone's coming in. Some of us are going to be really extroverted and want to be with all these team members. Some of us are really introverted and really need like time to decompress because you've been with people all day, and that really is okay. And we want to like encourage you to fuel yourselves in whatever way that's going to be best in that time. So, and I know sometimes like even as me being extroverted, sometimes I just need time to be introverted because it is just a lot. Some people will stay up really late, and sometimes it's great. And if you're having good fellowship, that's awesome. But there's like, you're still expected the next morning to like get up early, be at breakfast, like be ready for chapel and all of those things. So just be wise and discerning in like how you choose to spend your time at night before we go to bed. The stars in Malawi are absolutely amazing. A lot of us like to spend time just sitting on the porch, and we'll just star watch for a really long time. But once we're up after dark, like, and you'll see when we get there, and you can kind of see on the map, like Abusa's house is kind of has like a fence or a gate around it, and there's guards out there, but like we are not allowed to like leave Abusa's house after it's dark. Like once it starts getting dark and we come up to the house, like we're at the house, no one's leaving, no kind of ifs, ands, or buts. And that's just kind of the area that we're like to at night. So yeah, and then we essentially go to bed and wake up and do it all over again. So that's kind of what the day-to-days look like. What questions can I answer?
Well, I want to say something about that. You were talking about moving about, and when we moved back up to Abusa's house at 5 and not going out the gate again after that. But throughout the day, you really need to practice the buddy system. And so, 2 people always together, if not 3, and just don't get yourself into the place of, I'm going to go off alone by myself. This is team. We're here to be a team. So you don't need to go off to be alone. You don't need to be alone with a child or alone with a staff member. You need to be with a team member all the time. And this is really, really, really especially true for our young women. But really it's true for everybody. It's just a good protection for you. And one of the things we need to just be really cautious of is people asking you for things. So it is never appropriate for a Malawian to ask you for anything. The children have been taught this. Our staff have been taught this. That is not the reason for you going. But sometimes people will try to push that and find the opportunity. So one way to avoid being asked for things or being asked questions that are inappropriate is for you to always be with someone else. Another thing is to always, if anyone ever says to you, now I want to tell you something, or I want to ask you something, but don't tell anybody. As soon as you hear the words, but don't tell anybody, that's your red flag. And you finish the conversation and immediately go to your team member and team leader and you tell them, because this is not appropriate conversation if someone has said to you, don't tell me, don't tell anybody. So it's just, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened in the past that a staff member will ask for money, or a child will ask for your backpack or for your shoes. And if it's one of the children, you can simply say, no, I'm not giving it away. And you can go to your team leader later and say, so-and-so asked me for my shoes, and I really wouldn't mind giving my shoes to that person when I leave. But then do it through your team leader, who will do it through Pastor Petey, so that it doesn't perpetuate the idea that we're just giving. We are not creating a dependent community here where people can just ask and take anything that they put their eyes on. We are really developing relationships. We're trying to empower a community to grow and to be able to care for themselves. And so these are just some important clues that you need to have about conversations. But please do not wander around by yourselves. Guys, that's important for you too, because there are a lot of women who work on our campus, and they kind of freak out if you show up by yourself because they don't know what they're supposed to do. So hang out as a team, go do things together, and just don't show up someplace alone, because there's really no reason for you to be anywhere on the campus alone.
Hey, Karen, is now the time to kind of talk about also the questions that we should not ask just out of curiosity, and then it turns into an expectation on their part?
Yeah, we could bring up that conversation. Silvana, you want me just to hand that over to you and you can respond there?
Yeah, that's fine. So often in our culture, like if you are asking, especially the question of like, how much do a pair of shoes cost? Like they have the expectation that you're asking and you're going to give them that thing. So it's just kind of a thing you kind of want to stay away from. You don't want to ask questions about money or how much things cost, because they're going to have the expectation that like you're going to give them those things. And sometimes like when you don't know culturally, like you kind of want to, you're just curious. And we can ask questions about their culture and about how things work, or like what does university look like. I know we talk a lot of like there's a lot of students that go, and so we often have conversations of what school and stuff looks like, but you just kind of want to stay away from asking like money type questions, just because then they have this expectation that you're going to pay for whatever you're asking about. What else do you want to add to that?
Well, I think that a lot of those questions are really valid questions, but they need to be asked in the right place. So a really good place to do that, you'll see it on the thing right down below, and we'll talk about it in the weeks to come, the question box. And that's going to be a place for you to write down your questions. So maybe everybody wants to know that answer, but if you just ask your team leader privately, other people don't get the chance to hear the answer. So you could write down those questions like, how much does a pair of shoes cost? Or what do staff members make here at the Grace Center? And then allow your team members to respond, or for them to call Pastor Petey and say, Lisa, could you just come in and talk to us one night? We have like 10 questions we want to ask you. And that would be a very appropriate place to ask those questions. And so sometimes, rather than just off the top of your head, and we are sometimes kind of just like fishing, what can I say? What can I ask? Because we're kind of in this desperate, I'm crossing cultures and I don't know how to do it. And what can we talk about? But just kind of like calm yourself down and think, is this a wise question for me to ask? Or will this establish an expectation that I don't want to set up. So like, you know, somebody said to a person one time, "Oh, I'm getting married. Oh, I wish you could come to my wedding. It would be so cool if you came to my wedding." And so the pastor goes away thinking, "Oh, I'm going to America to somebody's wedding." But there was none of that in the conversation. She was not promising to buy him a plane ticket so that he could go to America to her wedding, but he thought she was promising to go to the wedding. So, you know, we have to be just really careful that we don't put out false expectations.
I don't think, yeah, Brett and Lisa, I think you guys are the only married couple in this that are new. But you guys can talk to Carly and Tad about just like that relationship in Malawi and male and female interactions. Well, I guess I could also talk about also in their culture, like males will hold hands often. So especially as a guy, like a Malawian man might come up and like hold your hand, and it's like so foreign to us in the States, but it really is just like a friendly gesture, and they just kind of loosely walk holding each other's hands like down the path. So just so you're aware, that's like a very normal culture thing. Guys and girls, like married couples, there's married couples that work even at the Grace Center. You have no idea they're married because they barely like even interact with each other in public, let alone show any type of like personal affection. So even like friends wise, like I know we have to watch of even like no giving each other hugs and that kind of stuff, like in that public setting with Malawians, guy to girl, 'cause it's just like not appropriate. And like we're very like I know I'm a very touchy person, so I'm like I always like hugging people or even like whatever. So it's just you just have to be mindful of that and not interact with each other, opposite genders, like in that way.
Girls, we need to remember too that the boys at Timothy's home, they're sometimes pretty small, but these guys are teenagers. So you know, don't let them trick you into sitting on your lap or getting too close to you on the bench, because they are teenagers and they will be teenagers. So just protect yourselves that way too.
Cool. That's all I have. The only other thing I was going to leave with you guys is I think Karen connected it on, what did you connect the prayer list to?
Oh, it's on your link that you got for the meeting. So you probably have already seen that email if you're in the meeting here.
There's just a list of like who we would encourage like you guys to be praying for, like team member wise and like child wise this week.
And staff.
On there. Even if you can't pronounce the name, it's okay. It's the prayer that counts. But before we go, is there any other questions that I can answer about anything that we talked about, whether it's schedule or packing or cultural stuff? Cool. Well, I'll stay on here for a second if you guys have any questions and want to stay on. Otherwise, it was really nice meeting you all. I'm excited for all of you guys to experience Malawi.